Linda McMahon announces investigation into Maine. Linda McMahon announces an investigation in the Maine Department of Education for secretly creating gender plans to help kids transition behind their parents' back. What? WTF? What the? You already know. Secretly creating gender plans to help kids transition behind their parents' back. What would you guys do if one of your kids was secretly transitioning behind your back? If you're a good parent, you would know right off the jump. You'd be like, yo, what is going on here? My teacher said it's okay. No, your teacher is not me. Your teacher is not your father. Your teacher is not your mother.
Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, joined by Parents Defending Education founder and president Nicole Neely. Today, the Department of Education is announcing an unprecedented directed investigation into the Maine Department of Education for alleged violations of the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, or FERPA. We have heard disturbing reports that dozens of Maine school districts allow for schools to create gender plans that support a student's transgender identity and then hide those plans from parents, claiming they don't fall under education records. That is unacceptable and unlawful, if true. Parents and guardians have the right to access their child's education records to guide and safeguard their child's mental, emotional, and physical well-being, and we will uphold the law.
Thank you, Secretary McMahon. You are absolutely correct that parents have a right to know what is taking place while their children are under the care of school personnel.
I would be pissed off if this was going on. This is why public school is failing. Of course, parents have the right to know what's going on with their child or children.
No. So many of these complaints were ignored by the previous administration. The practice of leaving parents in the dark while schools push students to undergo so-called gender transitions, and it became all too common. We're proud to stand with you and President Trump as you ensure that the law is being followed and that school districts do not infringe on parents' rights.
This is bananas to me. It is absolutely bananas to say that I don't have the right for my child's information. And honestly, if we're talking about elementary school people, elementary school children, middle school children, they can't even smoke. They can't drink. I thought I could fly when I was in elementary school. That doesn't mean I'm going to transition.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I think that's a little bit of background on how we got here to sort of national outrage over how things are going. How long do you think it will be, given the process that you have to take up, to really see the end of the Department of Education?
Well, Martha, first of all, thanks for having me this
Thank you.
afternoon. I think the president's been crystal clear. It was a campaign message of his, and he hasn't backed off at all on closing down the Department of Education. Now, clearly, we must do this with Congress. I want to be in partners with Congress. I want to show them what the plan is for shutting down the department and convince them that it's in the best interest of students to what we'd like to do. We want to raise scores, not continue to let scores get lower. And the president is really convinced that the bureaucracy of the Department of Education is a hindrance in that. And he would like to see more of the funds that are now caught up in overhead and bureaucratic red tape go directly into the states so that there's more money actually for the programs for states.
So what's the process? How soon will we see a vote? How much support do you need in Congress? We haven't seen too many agencies close. People aren't used to watching how this plays out. So tell us.
Well, we'd have to have 60 votes in the Senate to do that.
Yeah.
And
we get that?
Well, we're going, as I said, we're going to partner with Congress. I've already talked to some of the senators about what we would like to do. I've heard some of their concerns. I want to address them as we move along. because there are plenty of programs that we can put into place that can transfer very easily. And what I would like to do is to make sure that as we, as the president says, send education back to the states, that we are providing the states with tools and best practices so that they can look at what's been successful in many other states that has raised their scores. We just got the NAEP scores at the end of January. That's the nation's report card. And we saw the state of Louisiana come up. I think they were number one in improvement and bringing their scores up. We had the Mississippi Miracle, in which those readers and their literacy tests came literally from almost bottom in the country to
This is what I tell folks too with kids, right? And you're living in a blue state and you find that your education system isn't working for you and your family. You got to make a decision. If you're going to move out of that state to provide better education and better safety for your family, you got to do what's best for you. Bring the education back to states. The Department of Education is finito burrito. Linda McMahon isn't going to have a job much longer, but they are demolishing the Department of Education. Linda McMahon also says that student loans used to be in the private sector. It was President Obama that brought it in and put it into the Department of Education, which is not a bank. Linda McMahon has been going on a presser here.
If you had to figure out what the education department does in terms of budget, it seems like the bulk of it is promoting college, university, Pell Grants, loans.
Yeah, this is
college is we'll jump back into this video, but college is something else. I think trade schools are very underrated.
just about it. It was almost, I think it was a little more than 40% of what the budget was, and the people in the Department of Education were really relative to student loans. And, that student loans used to be in the private sector. It was President Obama that brought it in and put it into the Department of Education, which is not a bank. So all of the collection process, et cetera, is all done through outside vendors, which you pay middleman fee to help to have that happen. So my view, and I've had good conversations with Secretary Bessent, and also the president and I and Scott Bessent have had conversations with Kelly Loeffler from SBA. So is there a mechanism that would be in place that would better serve this? And so in terms of collection process, et cetera, Treasury does that really well. Mm-hmm. And there is clearly a good acceptance from Scott's point of view that this would be a place to house. New loans going forward, we might consider looking at SBA to have sort of a guaranteed program, but that's really, really in future conversations. First of all, we want to make sure this collection process is working because, believe it or not, and I know COVID threw a wrench into things, but since March of 2020, right around COVID time, there has not been any collection for outstanding student loans. And why would they have? The Biden administration was saying, we're going to forgive your loans.
Right.
You remember that?
Tried to circumvent the Supreme Court and their rulings to forgive other loans. And it's just not fair to all taxpayers to have them pay for student loans when they might have paid their own, or their own taxpayer dollars should be spent in other ways rather than forgiving loans, except for service agreements, which
that was a big old thing with Biden. Hey, we're going to forgive the student loans. We're going to forgive the student loans. Nobody made payments on the student loans. High interest rate student loans. How many of you guys in the chat, how many of you guys watching this on a replay know people that got college degrees for underwater basket weaving or agricultural professional singing degree, performing arts degree, and they are thousands and thousands of dollars in debt? This is why I say trade schools, me personally, my personal opinion, trade schools are undervalued. I think trade schools are going to be of high value here in the near future because we're moving to a technology-based economy. And these trades, like people that actually use their hands, are going to be very high value here in the near future, but undervalued currently. I'm going to jump into the comments. Laying the smack down on Maine. Somebody says, or Fetus says, I would end up in prison. I would too, if a teacher was saying that my kid could transition behind my back. They're too young. It's not even, it shouldn't even be a thing. Shouldn't even be a thing. Risking my biscuit. It happened to my sister. School gave her a trans counselor instead of a normal counselor. They were pushing this DEI crap. The Biden administration was all about that. If you think back about the remember this whole controversy too with the Christmas lights. I don't know what they were doing. Terry said, I would drive 2 hours to my kid's school and raise hell. Amen. LJ writes, pull mains funding now. What is up, Christina? Christina in the house. Homeschool is the way to go. Yes. I know a lot of people that used that pulled kids out of schools to strictly do homeschool. Oh man. Let me make sure I catch up on the comments. Homeschool. Yep.